All right. Hello, everybody. I'm super excited that you're here. I'm Shannon. My pronouns are she, her. I'm wearing glasses. I have curly blonde hair, and I'm wearing a black turtleneck. And I am the CEO of Monsoon Leadership, and we are here to train the next generation of development leaders through workshops and coaching. And I am also the Chief Advancement Officer of an organization here in Seattle. Some of my team is on this call. And I'm also on the board of AFP Northwest. So super excited to be bringing this training to our local community to help you all make more money. That's what I'm here to do today. So I have close to 20 years experience leading development and communications for nonprofits. I'm a career transition coach and salary expert, and I also do management training and leadership coaching on healthy leadership techniques. So some of you who do know me personally, I am also a lover of hobbies. I have a million hobbies, included being a ballroom dance teacher, a DIY interior designer, love all my plants, love cooking, and love my dog. And I really think that it's super important for you to be a full person and not just be the title you wear at work. So let's dig into it. So the facts are that we still have a lot of work to do in our field to be paid equitably. So the latest AFP 2023 compensation and benefit survey, yes, we are increasing by 6.7%, but we're barely keeping up with inflation. So it's really important for us to have the tools to advocate for our worth and ask for the amount of money that fulfills our lives. And we're still experiencing a lot of change in our industry of people changing jobs. That's still happening. So 55% of people are looking to leave their job or leave the industry altogether. And we still have a gender pay gap, which I can't believe we're still talking about in our field. Even though we're female dominated, we still have a gender pay gap. So there is still so much more work to do to get salary equity analysis to happen in our industry. Okay, so we're going to do a quick poll of where are you at with money so we can kind of see who's in the room. Sorry. So there's 3 little questions here. So answer them as quickly as you can so we can see the results. So the first one is, what's the largest raise you've gotten? So that's an internal raise you've gotten at your job. The second one is about, changing jobs and, what is the largest pay increase you've gotten? And then how much are you looking to increase your salary by? And I'm clicking too many things. All right. So I'm going to give it one more second, then I'm going to end it. So get your answers in quick because we got a lot to cover. One more minute. Okay, 6 more seconds. All right, let's see where we're at. So it looks like the most popular answer for the largest raise you've gotten is about $5,000, which is pretty common. However, as we know, you don't feel that much after taxes, right? $5,000 often feels like $500. And so really, if we're going to go to all this effort to advocate for ourselves for an internal promotion, we really want to feel that in our paycheck. So only 13% have felt that for 10,000 or more, which is really where you start to feel that increase in your paycheck. All right, then when switching jobs, what's the largest pay increase you've gotten? And I'm very happy to see more than 20K is the most popular answer. So that's really great to see because we want to be aiming for that every time we're changing jobs because it is so much work to change jobs. You go back to PTO at 0, all of these things, you want to make it feel like it's worth it. So I'm really happy to see that answer. And then the juiciest one of all, how much you want to increase your salary by. So I love seeing 20K, 30K, more than 30K. We are here to dream big. We are not, and nobody answered 5K. So that makes me so happy because we want to be aiming for more than 5K every time we're changing jobs. So I'm really happy to hear that already. All right. Okay. So Now we are going to dig into the main thing is that you all deserve to be paid more. So why I'm here is the system is actually rigged to lowball you on offers. So most employers are usually trying to get you for the cheapest amount that they can. And I have been in rooms where I've heard that. So I'm here to give you the tools that you can advocate for your worth. You are not being greedy. You are advocating for what you are worth right now. That is your skills. That is your experience. That's your lived experiences. That's everything that you bring to the table. So I am super passionate about giving you all the tools so that you can earn what you're worth. So that's what we're here to do today. So kind of the basic rule here is we're going to be brave and talk about money. The other thing is that because we're in a local community, we might know some of each other's employers and some, where people are at. So we really want to honor that anonymity. When I taught this at a conference, it was like people were coming from all over the nation. So they already kind of had that. But when I thought about bringing this to a local community, we really have to honor that, like, we got to know where everybody's working. So we want to be brave, talk about what we're worth, ask tough questions about how to negotiate our salaries, but we also want to honor each other's anonymity. So I just wanted to say that because, it's an interesting dynamic we're in. All right, so I'm going to throw you guys in breakout rooms really quick. It's not going to be a long one. And I'd love for you to just do a quick introduction of who you are and just say something that's holding you back from asking for more money. So how many people do we have on the call? 20. So yeah, so I'm going to assign you, I'm going to give you about 6 minutes to share, and then we're going to come back because we have a lot of strategies to talk about. But the first thing we really want to dig into is what are those fears that hold us back for asking for the amount that we're worth. So share, and we'll be back. Here's Michael. All right. Welcome back, everybody. All right. Welcome back. Welcome back. Hope you guys had some good sharing. It's always good to start with what are those fears that are holding us back, because we want to layer the tactics on top of those mind shifts, right? So when we're talking about, salary, increasing our salary, the first question we need to ask ourselves is, do I stay or do I go? Is this job where I really want to be right now in my life and root in, and I want to advocate for that next raise or that's next promotion? Or am I ready for a new challenge and I'm ready to go? So we're going to start with what the tactics are to stay. So if you want to stay, there's a couple realities. So if you are in a place in your life where you need to increase your salary by tens of thousands of dollars, that's easier to do if you change to a new organization. Most nonprofits have a stingy mindset. Well, they will not do a raise over $10,000 or like 10% of your existing salary. So if you're like, you know what, I want to buy a house, I want to do childcare, I want to travel the world, I want to do whatever, and you need that big increase, the best way to do that is to change jobs. So on average, my clients increase their salary by 30K when they change jobs. But that's really hard to do internally. But if this is your dream job and you want to stay here and root in, you could probably get up to 10K more. It requires a longer strategy though, because the harsh truth is that your boss will rarely initiate a raise or promotion for you. You have to ask for it. So I'm trying to get to everybody's managers and leaders to get them to always increase their staff salary, but a lot of bosses will not. And so if you want a promotion, you need to start bringing it up 1 year in advance, 1 year of conversation saying, my dream, my aspiration is to get to that manager level, to get to that director level. What are those stretch projects that I can take on now? What are those professional development opportunities I need to do now to show that I am ready a year from now to step into that role? And then you also need to do all the legwork for them. Hey, I wrote this job description. Hey, I did this salary analysis, and make it as easy as possible to help you get that raise or promotion internally. So just remember, most people are not going to give it to you. You have to ask for it. And once you just own that power of asking for it, you will continue to increase your salary. Because if we wait around for someone to give it to us, it probably isn't going to happen, because they're trying to get the labor as cheap as possible, right? So we have to advocate for our worth. So the first step, the first tactic, if you want to stay at your organization, is you chart your promotion path. So you're researching what titles, job description, and salary you want. You're looking regionally at different jobs. You're setting up Idealists, Philanthropy News Digest, LinkedIn searches, and you're taking notes. What are those keywords that need to be in that job description? And you're going to write your ideal job description, because again, you want to make it as easy as possible for your boss. So they're not going to take the time to write that. You can write that and present it. And then you really want to think about, of course, because we're in nonprofits, how does that role fit within the larger organizational goals? How does this promotion help your organization scale, increase their revenue, whatever it is they're looking to do? Because you really want to have that synergy there. So yes, start talking 1 year in advance. And I know that seems excessive, but it takes time to run these things up the ladder and to create space for that new role. So start expressing, hey, I'm looking to grow in that way. What can I take on? What can I do to show that I'm ready to manage a staff or oversee all of major gifts here at this organization, or really start being a relationship lead with our program officers in our grant program, whatever it is you're looking to do. Because also a great tactic for your supervisor is, if they know in advance that this is what you want to stay and they want to retain you, they'll actually write your raise into the budget. But if they don't know that you want that, it's actually harder to go back and edit the budget later on to add in that raise. So you're actually doing them a favor by letting them know in advance that that's what you're looking to do. So there are realities within our organization where, you know, some organizations have room to grow into the next role and some are stuck. Smaller organizations, there's less movement, but then also some larger that's a tough word to say right now, hierarchical organizations, there's also not much movement. So when you're doing this analysis, you want to be realistic. Like, is there a budget and structure for me to have to move into this role? And if not, then you do want to start looking externally, right? So you really want to be, you know, looking at the budget and saying, is there room for this? So you want to look at the 990s on GuideStar, the audit, talking with your finance team to get a sense of what the budget looks like. And then also by talking to your supervisor in advance, they can also let you know, oh, hey, we're actually going to be having a, you know, tighter budget next year. This isn't a great time to look, you know, to advance in this role. And it's so good for you to know that, because if you're like, but no, but this is the year. This is the year I want to advance that role. This is the year I want to get that salary. You already know that you need to go look externally instead of wasting time doing this. You already know. And that's why it's so important to start talking with your supervisor early on. And then also just remembering that it is harder to advance 10K or more internally. So it's not impossible, but it is hard. So your best time to advocate for yourself is the annual review, but you don't want to wait that long, because sometimes with some supervisors, they feel caught off guard of like, whoa, I didn't even know that. I thought we were just doing our annual review. And then you have a weird tense situation. So that's why those advanced conversations really help. But you want to shine in your annual review. You want to be ready. You have your list of your top accomplishments. You have your ideal job description and salary and how that fits into the regional salary bands. You want to explain how your promotion fits within the organizational goals. And you want to lay it all out for your supervisor, and then be patient. Just like how we, you know, solicit a donor and then we just sit back and be quiet because they need time to run it up the ladder. And that might take a little bit of time. And hopefully your boss is advocating for you. But you never know. They might be having a contentious situation with their boss. So there's other dynamics that are happening behind the scene that got to give it a little time and then follow up if you haven't heard anything, right? But this is the most ideal time to negotiate your salary. So you want to be ready. The other thing is that you want to think beyond salary. So sometimes an organization will come to you and say, you know what, there's just not really room in the budget to, you know, to give you the salary you're looking for, or they're going to give you something really low, like 5,000 or less. And you're like, okay, well, what are there other options available? Knowing what these options are just makes you in such a stronger position to negotiate externally and also internally. Is there an opportunity for an annual bonus or a project-based bonus? Could you get additional PTO? Could you get an additional percentage on a 401k match? Can you finally get those flexible work hours you've been looking for? Can you get an extra professional development funds or a coach? Because sometimes, you know, us in fundraising, we come out of the general operating budget. So maybe they don't have extra money for your salary, but they can pull from a grant specific budget money for you to have a coach, right? Which then gets you their skills to then jump to that next career in your ladder. So being creative and being open to other types of funding that is not salary. But at the end of the day, your salary is what funds your life. So if you don't feel like the salary is fair, you're not going to love your job. You're going to feel resentful, and your job satisfaction is going to plummet, and you're just going to look for another job because, right? Why would you stay in that? So really knowing within yourself before you have these conversations, like, what is your number? What is the wiggle room on that? And what else could be a benefit to you right now? And what isn't, you know? If you like additional PTO is just not really something that's going to help you right now in your life, that's not going to help you buy a house or something, you know? Then that's not going to work. So really knowing where you're at and how that money fits into your wider life is really important. Okay, the sixth tactic, and this one's really spicy. It can go both ways. I've seen it both ways. I don't really recommend it, but it is an option. that you can go out and get another job offer somewhere, take it to your supervisor and say, hey, I've been offered this job at this salary amount. Can you match it? Now, they may not counter, so you better like that other job because you pretty much have to quit at that point. Or, they may match it, but they feel like they were backed into a corner and it's kind of soured. And then you have like a negative work environment. So it can go both ways. It is an option. I don't recommend it. I've seen it both ways. So, but it's out there as a tactic. And then the final reality check of this is you could do all this work. You could spend all year. You could be so organized. You could do everything. And they say no, or they lowball you on your offer. And, I'll be honest, that's when a lot of people come to me to help them with their career transition coaching. They've had some really negative experiences where their nonprofit has shown them their worth and it does not match with their internal sense of self-worth, right? And that's pretty tough to come back from. And I really think in that situation, it's time for you to leave your organization. And so we're going to talk about that next of, what are those steps to take to find your next opportunity. But just so there's no guarantees. There's no guarantees with either of these tactics, but at least you have all the information to make the best situation possible. And I constantly hear this in nonprofits. You are not greedy. That word is just crossed out here. You are standing up for your worth. And I firmly believe that in nonprofits, you are allowed to build wealth. You are allowed to retire early. That should not be just available to people who work in corporate America. Like, you can do good and also have a good living and build wealth. And that's really what I'm here for. So I just want you to know that we're going to go over that a couple more times. Okay, so I want to pause there. I just threw a lot out of, what are the Q&As that you guys have on internal promotion. So you can just raise your hand, drop it in the chat, or come off mute, and I'll stop sharing for a second so we can talk through that. Any questions that people have? Anything in the... If you guys don't have any questions, we can go to the next one, but I want to make sure. No questions on internal promotions? All right. Okay, we're going to go back. All right. So this is what happens when you're ready to go seek a new opportunity. So you're ready for the next step at a new org. You want to make significantly more money. The higher you climb the ladder, the longer job searches take. So any of you who are at a director and above and really VP and above, you should be budgeting for about 6 months for that process. And that's twofold. A lot of times you're working with recruiters. And so, so that's part of it. And then the other part is you want to be picky, right? Because we're all development professionals here. When you're responsible for that number, you want to feel good about it, right? So you want to take the time to research. You're working through recruiters. There's usually more interviews. Sometimes there's assignments, although we're working on changing that. And it just takes a while. So if you're like, I got to get out of this job right now, start now, because it might take, 3 to 6 months. Okay, I see a question from Joyce. I'm going to pause here and answer her questions. What are you seeing in nonprofit org job market for the next 6 to 12 months, expanding or contracting? We are so lucky to be working in development that we are always in demand. We have one of the most fluid careers out there. You can always get a new job. You can always get a new job. There's always development jobs posted. Now, is it your dream job, your perfect mission, your perfect culture? That takes time to find, right? And I don't even fully believe in a perfect job. I think there's a lot of great jobs. But I think that, right now I'm not seeing any contraction in the job market. I think that, overall in nonprofits, we're seeing a little bit of a rebound from the pandemic money. A lot of people got PPP money, but then didn't match it. So there's a little bit of funny stuff happening with people's budgets across the nation, but people are still hiring, and they're always going to be hiring. They're always going to be hiring at our level. So that's how I feel. All right. So the first step for, working on an external position is pretty similar to the other one. You're starting with research. So what titles, job descriptions, and salaries do you want to secure? And really thinking about what missions call to you. Because in development, we got to feel that heart connection, We've got to feel that to feel like we're doing our best work. So really starting to center in on what do you really want? Because you don't want to apply for everything, right? Because then you don't want to settle. You're not going to do all this work and settle for something you don't love, At least you want to love it on paper. So setting up those searches, looking at those other jobs, and also depending on the level that you're at, starting to look at recruiters. So there's local recruiters and then there's national recruitment firms. So starting to get to know them and what types of jobs. Sometimes they have talent profiles that you can just submit onto their website. And what that means is that they have you in their database, right? So they might contact you about a job that they have opening up. And then really spending time on your LinkedIn profile. Is it up to date? Do you have, a headline that represents your work experience, but also something about your passions and interests as a human? Does your about section really showcase your experience and who you are as a person? Under your experience section, do you have it fleshed out for each job? Do you have those skills listed? Because recruiters will find you through LinkedIn. So you want to have it as robust as possible. Do you have any recommendations? Are they from years ago? If so, start reaching out to your contacts and saying, hey, I'll do a recommendation for you if you do one for me. Or else it just looks kind of dead, right? And you want to look relevant and not only an expert in your field, but also like this is the human that you are. Because a lot of times when hiring managers, they get a resume full of successes, right? Everybody's got successes, but what makes you unique in your approach for this role makes you more competitive. Because there's a lot of people out there that raise a lot of money, but why are you the best fit for this mission? And your LinkedIn profile can tell that story. Okay. All right, Elizabeth, great question. I've seen mixed advice on this. Should we omit work experience that is only 6 months in length? You could go either way on that. I think in our field, people are not afraid of job hopping. They're not going to ding you because you were at a place less than a year. I think that there is a pretty shared understanding that we have a very competitive job market. And there's a lot of situations that a fundraiser would leave an organization for. So I think the only reason I would say omitting it is if you just didn't want it on there, like if you'd had a really negative experience with that organization and you don't want them to call that organization, because a lot of people just know each other. So they'll do these informal checks, and so I just think it's your right. If you don't want to list it, you don't have to list it, and just be like, I just want to admit that from my life. I think that's fine. But I also think hiring managers are not scared by something that's less than a year. So, and I think you should always do what's right for you. And if that job isn't right for you, then leave in 6 months. You only got one life, right? And we can make you look however we want through your resume and cover letter and LinkedIn, right? You can spin it a lot of different ways. We're good at that in development. Okay. I think this is the hardest part. And this is why we had that sharing in the breakout room, because I think it's actually really hard to believe in our worth. I think it's also really hard to say our number with confidence. And instead we kind of whisper it or, can just, it's really hard to own that number. And it's like, what is that true number that you want to earn next? Grounding in reality, right? Not going from like 80K to 300K, but like, what does that really ideal next step look like? And really believing it. Like I tell my clients, start saying it. Like, I'm Shannon and I make this amount of money. Like, start believing it. Because if you don't, it comes through. That lack of confidence comes through when we start talking numbers. And you can earn 30K or more by changing jobs. It's possible at all levels. You don't have to be a director and above to do that kind of jump. I had a woman that was coordinator to manager and went 40K. So It doesn't have to be high levels for you to change that much. So you really want to think about that time and investment that's going to take to change jobs. You know, if you can't get a PTO cash out, but you want to take time off between, you're relying on savings, like really think about the money that it takes to change jobs and put that into your number, because that's really important. And then you never, ever, ever, ever reveal your current salary during the process. It does not matter. It's only the salary that you want. And I see there's another question in here. What if job applications ask you what your preferred salary is and they require you to answer the question? I'm guessing that means in writing, not in the interview, but let me know if I've got that wrong. So I think it's totally fine, always verbally, to say what your preferred salary is. Let me see, it might be my next slide. Yes, in writing. So you're looking at the salary range. And if your preferred salary is right in there, I mean, there's no problem, right? You're right in there. If you're like, ooh, I'm looking for something higher above, you really want to dig into that job description. See, did they just do a salary equity analysis? And they're saying there's no negotiating this number, which I'm seeing a lot more of. And I love that people are actually taking the time to put parameters on, how much they'll stretch a salary. But if it's not there, then there is room for negotiation. So I think that you should put your ideal salary there, because really, if they're not going to meet your ideal salary, do you really want the job? So this is a big mindset shift, is that you are actually guiding the salary conversation. So we just started talking about this. We're going to dig into this a little bit more, that you are setting the standard for what salary you want, because you've already done all that work to really know what you want. So you want to be upfront about what salary expectations are. So this is your, screening call with the hiring manager. Sometimes it's HR, sometimes it's the recruiter. And when they ask, be honest about what you really want, even if it's higher than above, because they might come back and, well, most of the times they will come match it. So you can often secure about 10K higher than the top, unless they say that there's no room for negotiation due to the salary equity analysis. But in general, you can go 10K, sometimes 20, 30K over what's listed there. It just depends on the organization. Looking at their 990s and seeing how financially healthy they are also helps you to see what that wiggle room looks like, and also what your boss is making, right? Because that helps too. So when they ask about your salary expectations, be honest and speak confidently. Most times they'll match it. Now, why I tell people to practice, I'm going to tell you all a funny story of the first time I was really trying to negotiate a big jump in my salary. I hadn't really practiced it, and I was on the phone with the hiring manager, and I went to say the number, and I kind of choked on the number and almost burped a little bit. It was weird. I don't think they noticed it, but I was like, wow, that was really, really odd, and I probably should have practiced it. So I really think our fears come out in very strange ways. So don't burp your number, practice it. Now, I did get an offer for that number. So that was the good news in the end, that I felt super embarrassed in that moment. And I was like, okay, I should have worked on that. Also, by saying your number with confidence, you signal your worth as a candidate. Based on my skills and experience, this is the number that I am worth right now. And that's super attractive. You, especially in a leadership role, that's really attractive. You want to work with someone like that. On the flip side, you want to have your lowest number ready. So what is your lowest number that you will not go below? Because you need to know when to walk away from a job offer. It's really confidence building to get that job offer, but it's kind of intoxicating, and sometimes you'll settle. So you need to know what is that lowest number, so you know when to walk away. And you always keep that number secret. That's not the number you're going to put in writing. You always want to have it 20K higher than your secret number, right? So then if they come 10 below, you're like, okay, but it's still in that range that's acceptable to me. And knowing this in yourself before there's a real offer in front of you, before you've had the sunk costs of all these, interviews, doctor's appointments you've been doing, or all these things you've been doing, all the work that it takes to get a new job. You want to know, because there's another job out there. There's another job out there that'll pay you what you want. You don't have to settle. But it's so important to know, is this number going to work for you? You know, because as we just went through in the beginning, it's way harder to get into that job and then increase your salary. The best negotiation point you have is at a verbal offer. That's the best point you have to negotiate in your entire career at that organization. So you want to use that to the best of your ability. So the other perks we talked about, you know, taking those into effect, you know, especially we've got remote versus hybrid versus in person, right? If this job has a remote work culture and that's really important to you, then maybe that's worth a little bit more than money. I don't know. That's personally for you. You have to figure out what that's like, you know? So, but those are important things to think about before there's a real job in front of you. All right. So, like I said, the verbal offer is this is your hottest moment. This is where you could ask for the world. Because they are saying, oh my gosh, we're so excited about you. You are like a dream to them. You're going to come in and solve all their problems, you know, because you're not even like a real person yet. You're just this idealized version of you that's going to come in and be everything they've been looking for in this job search. So you want to use that to your advantage and ask for what you want. So if they offer you a lower number, you want to be prepared to say, like, thank you so much for this offer. You know, it's lower than I was expecting. Is there any wiggle room to get to this number? Or can we explore other options such as bonus structure and things like that? And if they say, no, this is final, you know, you want to think about that. You want to think about that. You know, in all cases, you want to say, I'd like to think this over for a couple of days. Can I have it in writing first? But this is your moment. And then what you can do is you can go talk to your trusted colleagues, right? So your network, and say, hey, what do you think about this job offer? Do you think I'm getting lowballed in this? Do you think this is fair? What do you know about this organization? Am I stepping into chaos? Like, really take those couple days, and then also take a couple days on your personal side of like, does this work financially for you and your goals 1 to 3 years from now? You know, like, does that work? Because you're only going to get modest growth, right? If you should really be thinking, oh, I might get like a 3% COLA, maybe. Just so you're not thinking, oh, I'll get there and then I'll advance. You just don't know what's going to happen in that organization. All you know is the number that's in front of you right there. All right. You have to get it in writing. If it isn't written down, it doesn't exist. And I mean everything. If they say, yeah, you can do a 4-day work week. Yes, you can work remotely. Yes, in a year, you'll get this, this, and this. Have it written down in your offer letter. I had a friend who was interviewing, and when they made the offer, they said, you know, this is your salary now. A year from now, you're going to get a raise to this amount. It wasn't in her offer letter. And guess what? All raises were frozen for the next year. If she had it in writing that offer letter, she'd have a leg to stand from a legal standpoint to get that raise. But people make promises during interviews and verbal offers because they want you. They want you to join their team. You've got to get it in writing so that you have leverage for whatever promises are made, right? All right. The very best tactic ever is to have another job offer in hand. And this is why you always want to be interviewing multiple places, even if you're like not super excited about that place. Like, you want to be interviewing in different places because you want to be able to say like, oh, I do have an offer for that amount. Actually, can you match it? And then it's like, you know, you're super attractive. It's like, oh my God, they already got an offer. We gotta move fast. We gotta match their number. We gotta move fast. You know, it's stressful. It's like dating two people at once. It's totally stressful, but you will get your number. So that is why it is important to go through, you know, a couple job interviews at once. And again, I'm going to keep saying this. You're not being greedy. You're standing up for your worth. You're just live in your number. This is what you're worth right now. This is what you're worth. All right. I think we're not going to have time for a second breakout room because I want to make sure we have time for questions. So I'm just going to, let's just maybe drop in the chat, like, what tactic most surprised you and kind of, or which one you're going to put into action. So just drop in the chat, just like any reactions. Let's see what's resonating with people. And then I want to make sure we have some time for questions and sharing at the end. So kind of, it can be from either the internal raise promotion section or the new job section. So what is resonating? What tactics most surprise you? If you want to go off mute and raise your hand real quick and say, go for it too. Someone has to say something. We're not moving on until perfect. Thank you, Joyce. Interesting about internal raise up to 10K. Sounds high to me. It is high. They will try and keep you for less than 5K, but I say that's not worth it. Have it all written down. I trust a lot, and this is a good practice. Don't trust your hiring manager when they're hiring you. They are also trying to persuade you. Trust yourself. Helpful to think about minimum salary versus ideal salary. Yep. I like number 5, to always ask for a couple of days and ask for the offer in writing. Always ask for it in writing. Always, and always give yourself a couple of days. Surprised about the amount you're able to increase when switching jobs. Yep. Yep. I know, because we keep a lot of this secret, right? One of the reasons I was inspired to start teaching this and sharing this is I think that we have no idea what each other's making. And so we think that, oh, this is all we can ask for. And it's not true. Like, people are getting increases, and we have to like build our collective power of knowing what we can ask for and how we can ask for it, so that we are not being lowballed, right? Because we're the ones doing the work. And you want to be able to step into that job being like, yes, I got the number I want. I feel valued on day one. Having an offer in hand to negotiate another offer, always. It's your ace in your back pocket. All right, so I want to do this super quick. I have a couple resources for you. So this is more about monsoon leadership. I also have a freebie. So if you scan this QR code, and I'll drop this in the chat too, it's just monsoonleadership.com/freebie. These are 5 phrases to say to get the most money in a salary negotiation. So this is 5 things you have to say to get the most money. So I want to make sure that you all get that. Oh, sorry, we got a late chat in here. Always believe in the mentality to negotiate at least twice and counter the offer. If you don't ask for a salary raise, you will never get an increase in your salary. Thank you, Karen. You're hired, Karen. And love the tip of changing our mindset and knowing our worth. We are not being greedy. Women especially are notorious for not asking for our worth. Yes. So many of these messages are ingrained from childhood. But you know what? We got to afford our lives. And I want you all to get the fancy cheese. No skimping. So let's get you the money. And then I want to invite you all to something that I'm doing with 2 awesome leadership coaches in January. We're doing like a virtual mini conference, and I'm digging deeper into money. And I'm going to talk about a super taboo topic, which is wealth building. And so we're going to dig deeper. And then Sonia and Loretta are leaders in like mindset, boundaries, you know, emotional regulation at work, healthy work-life balance as leaders. Super excited. It's going to be awesome. So would love anybody to come. And I'm excited to introduce you to Sonia and Loretta. So this is kind of be digging deeper. So you know what? I'll check with Crescenda. I think we will be able to email the slides and everything. I just, I didn't check with her specifically on that, but I'm sure we can email this out in all the resources. But definitely wanted to invite you all to those 2 things, because I hope you're fired up to make more money. So, all right, last Q&A. I'm going to pull us off and just ask any final questions or scenarios. Yes, so I think I'll talk with Crescenda about sending this all out as like a little package so you can get, and I'll drop those things in the chat. So what other questions or scenarios, or, oh, I heard this, is this true? Because we all get to hear all kinds of fun little rumors, and just come off mute and ask. Oh, we got more in the chat. Okay, hold on. I'm catching up on the chat. Okay, this is rather off topic, but the reason I'm here today, if you're a manager who wants to take advantage of what we're learning today to advocate for your team and keep them because others don't think about there, is there one piece of value advice you might be able to offer? Increase your staff salary every year to keep them. Even if it's just a little bit, advocate as much as you can within the system that you're working within. And I think that there's always way to do mini promotions, mini raises, do what you can, even if you're in a really stuck structure. And I would say if you want to brainstorm, you can I'll drop my discovery call link and we could talk through it more. But I think, you gotta try. You got to try it or you're going to lose your staff. And that's just the reality. Okay. Haley, I love that we are in Washington are now required to post salary ranges. Hell yeah. I now run into situations where I'm told we never hire at the top of the range and expect to hire 50 to 75% of the posted range. What do you think about that? Well, I think you're worth at the top of the range. So maybe that's their policy that they haven't interviewed you yet. So I think that you should ask for the top of the range. I tell managers to always hire at the top of the range. I haven't reached every manager yet, but that's where when you know that the culture is to lowball you, you know that you have power to counteract that. So yeah. Okay. How do you negotiate between pay grades during a salary negotiation to be able to be in the higher pay scale? Yeah, Karen, that's a really good question. There's so many things that are wrapped up in that of like title and things too. And just kind of what the structure of the department is. I feel like that's sometimes a unique situation you have to talk through of, what exactly are the dynamics at play. But I think that sometimes people are advertising two jobs at once, and one is at a higher level and one is at a lower level. And maybe you applied for the lower level, but you're like, oh, I actually should have gone for the higher one. I still think you should. And I've even had people that have applied at the lower level and then got hired at the higher level. You don't know what, and I'll just say this, you don't know what weight the hiring manager is thinking about each of the criteria. So maybe you're like, okay, I've raised a ton of major gifts, but I've never managed a staff. You don't know. They might be thinking that major gift, like they need money now. So they're like, I want to hire a really good major gifts officer and we'll work on the supervision piece. So don't tell yourself you can't apply or you won't be competitive before you've actually done it. Because you just don't know. They're not going to get everything in that job description and you don't know what they're weighting the different things. So, but yeah, Karen, I feel like we should talk. If you have a specific thing in mind, you should book a call with me. We should talk through it because there's a lot of dynamics in play in that. Okay. Do you recommend taking a higher paying job if it means a demotion in title? Ooh, spicy. Depends. I mean, what do I believe? I think you should go higher in both all the time because I think that why not? And you're worth it. But that's me. I'm the ultimate hype woman. I think that sometimes you need money more than title in your life. If you are in a place in your life and you need more money now, there is no shame in that. There's no shame in that. This life is expensive. So, if it means taking a higher paid job and a demotion in salary and that doesn't hurt your soul, do what's right for you. Yes, April.
Thank you. I was just going to comment on that I actually did that early on in my career, where I was a development manager and I managed a small nonprofits fundraising. And then I took a $20,000 increase to become a director of the annual fund. But to me, if there's a way where you can tell that story, I scaled up to a huge organization, I took on this, or it sets you up for that next step, I think it could be really strategic without thinking like, oh, like the title's not there. The salary
totally.
enough, and maybe there's something else to justify it.
You can always tell a strategic story about that title change. I mean, I've seen so many people that, were so burnt out from the pandemic. They were in leadership roles and they took like a executive assistant role or something, just something to get through or to be home with their children during those years. And it's not hurting their job prospects. And I just think that that's why it's so important to know, like, what do you want in your life? Does this job actually provide it from a financial standpoint, a time standpoint, and like a using your creativity and talent standpoint? But you can always talk through those title changes. Okay. I want to make sure I get to all the questions. I've had a couple of interviews in the last few months where they ask you for solutions to their current situations as part of the interview. And then they turn around and decide not to hire you for the position. It is like they're interviewing to get ideas. Have you heard of this happening? Yes, I feel like Vu Lee has been writing about this lately too, and it is terrible practice. So I think that you can always counter and be like, wow, that's something I would love to work on in my first 6 months at this organization. So, here's how I would approach developing a strategy for that. So you could kind of talk through it that way where you're not like, hey, I'm going to give you all my ideas for free, in a way that they don't feel like, oh, they're not wanting to answer the question. And if they press you, you can be like, I really feel like that would be a deliverable as a full-time staff here. So, and I mean, I've had to tell hiring managers and recruiters, like, that's not really ethical for, I'm not going to give you the list of my top donors and their specific names, right? That's not ethical. So, things like that. Sometimes you do have to push back a little bit in a hiring process. And they did not hire anyone. They probably didn't know what they were looking for. It's probably part of it. But I teach a whole class on how to make a smart hire. So, you really have to know what you're looking for. We have a couple more minutes. These are such good questions. I just want to make sure if you have a question, you might want to just come off mute and ask it, because I feel like it might take a minute to type it. But these are such good, juicy questions. Don't be shy, because after this, we're done.
I
Come
have a
on.
question and I appreciate Hung brought that up, like being the manager and stuff. And sometimes I'm getting the experience of millennials in the office that are just like, oh, I should get a raise like every single year. And I appreciate your approach to, yes, if you want to retain people, give them something. And sometimes our organizations aren't built that way. What have you found around like generational differences around salaries, or just whatever perspective you'd like to respond to being a manager and trying to recruit and retain that kind of an office, or whatever age and trying to negotiate your salary?
Yeah, so I think that you're right. There is a generational difference in the workplace, and there's a lot of outdated ideas about salary at the top. And I think a lot of that is because they make a significant amount of money that they don't feel that. They don't feel that 10K difference is a life changer. Oh, I can get a better apartment. I could finally not have a roommate, or, those things along the way. I could pay off my student loans or whatever it is, And so I do think as managers, it is our job to advocate for whatever we can within. And even when they say no, I'm like, okay, but I think it was important to ask, because I think this person is worth it. And if we're going to lose them if we don't retain them through a salary increase. And sometimes it is just like to get your own internal promotion, it's a year in advance advocating for an internal promotion for a staff. And I've had that as well. And I'm like, here's all the proof points that I'm telling you that this person is ready to step into this role. And I think that as managers, we have to spend more time on that. And I also think, like, why not hire someone at the top of the range? If you can do that, well, first off, you shouldn't be publishing a range you can't pay the highest point. That's just disingenuous. So yeah, to that point earlier about paying 50 to 75%, hello. Why would you want to work for an employer who's not even being honest? You know what I mean? And I think as managers, hire at the top of the range, because you want that person to come in feeling super valued. And so I just think that's where I'm at with that. But I think it is a long road that we have to walk for the next few years of trying to change these cultures around pay equity and transparency, salary bands, and advocating. Look, inflation is increasing every year. So do people's salaries. So yeah. Well, we're at time. If anybody has one more burning question, I'll make time for it, or I can stay on a little bit later. But I just want to thank everybody so much. This is my favorite thing to talk about. So I am so excited, and I will work on everything being sent as follow-up. And you know where to find me, monsoonleadership.com, monsoonleadership@gmail.com. If you have a specific question, just email me there. I also know, like, if you didn't feel like you could ask it here in a public space, please reach out to me. I'm super happy to help out. And yeah, I hope to see you all in January at our mini conference, and that'll be fun. All right. Thanks so much, everybody. I'll see ya. Bye.